Good evening. Today from the Reddit Rainforest. What's the creepiest or most unexplainable thing you have ever seen that you haven't not shared anywhere? Serious replies only. I was in bed at night, woken up by the sound of steps on my roof tiling. I think I was about 13 at the time. I see a shadow walk past my skylight, unsure of what it was. I look outside my side window and see a man dressed in all black looking out from the construction scaffolding. After a while he looks into my window and I try to hide. My brother also saw him. We never found out what happened to him, but the police were informed. Back when I was 9 or so, me and my friend were having a sleepover. His parents were at a dinner, and his brother was out getting stoned somewhere. Anyways, it was probably 9 PM. His parents had just called and said that dinner had turned into drinks, and they would be out for a little while longer. Anyways, we were young, playing Minecraft on the Xbox 360, when we heard his front door open. It had a very noticeable noise when it opened. Very creaky, almost eerie, so we thought, oh, it's probably just your brother, and kept playing, thinking nothing of it. Then, we heard footsteps on the floor above us. We once again thought nothing of it, seeing as his kitchen was above the basement where we were playing games, and his brother was likely there for mid-high munches. But then, we heard another set of footsteps. We were confused at this point, but we did not worry as it was either his parents or a stoner friend of his brother. We then heard a scratching at the basement door. We both looked at each other like, is that just me, or is there a scratching? He did not have any pets, so, me being the oldest by 2 months, went to go check. I opened the door and there was nothing there. I yelled upstairs to his brother, let's call him Jim. Jim, you're not scaring us. Stop it. No reply. So I sat back down and continued playing. Now, there was a scratching on the window. We were honestly terrified. And we stayed seated. One of us looking at the door, the other looking at the window. Then, again, scratching at the door. I opened it with a baseball bat in hand. And nothing. We barricaded the door and put things in front of the window. We did not hear anything for the next half an hour, and eventually fell asleep. The next morning his dad came down and knocked on the door and tried to get into the basement. We took down the barricade, and his dad came into the room, furious. Why the hell did you guys rip open the screen door? We went upstairs and sure enough, the front door screen was shredded. We tried to convince him that it was not us, and that the brother had done it to scare us. But what he said next made our blood run cold. Jim was not home at all last night. We dropped him off in the city with his friends. My friend's house was half an hour away from the city, and none of the people at his friend's house had cars. Me and my friend looked at each other and could not speak. Needless to say, his parents did not believe us. They called my parents, and me and my friend had to split the cost to have the basement door replaced. It had tons of scratch marks as well, and the screen door replaced. Me and my friend still bring this up to this day. I was little and would remember in the middle of the night getting out of bed and walking downstairs and seeing glowing eyes in the playroom, and I would go in there and this thing, it would feel like I got picked up and whipped around and threw me back into bed. It looked like a big blob of malarkey with eyes in the middle of the room. I would always walk towards it for some reason ... and when I got close ... it would spring upwards and reveal its long skinny folded up arms and legs. It would wiggle me and shake me and then would run up the stairs with me and threw me in my bed. And then it would just sit on the outskirts of the room and just stare at me. Made sure I would stay in bed and go asleep ... I do not know if this was a dream. Probably. But I remember vivid this happening many times when I was really young. Sometime between ages 2 and 5. I have a memory as well of walking with an older neighbor, like 8, and looking in the room together and both seeing the blob. But he advised we walked away, which we did. A number of years ago, I was using an online chat site and got talking to a woman who claimed to live around 50 miles from me. We chatted quite happily for a couple of days. Then on the third day, a Saturday night, she was online and we were chatting. But she seemed different somehow. Something just did not seem right. But I could not put my finger on it. She explained that she was drinking, and I assumed that this was the reason behind the melancholy. We continued chatting, and she put on a cam, so I could see her there drinking as we chatted. Over a couple hours of chatting, her mood appeared to grow darker, and she appeared distressed, but was hesitant to elaborate further. She left and returned around 30 minutes later, and appeared drunker and more distressed. This time she had a stack of tablets on the table in front of her. She claimed that she could not go on, and started to take tablet after tablet. I had no idea what this medication was. She was continuing to take more and more tablets and her speech was getting more and more slurred. I was suddenly in a terrible position. Was I seeing someone take their own life on a live stream and totally unable to do anything? All I had was a name and a town, both of which could be false. I made the excuse of needing the toilet and left the room, and took this opportunity to call my local police and explained the situation. The police took what details I knew, and I was told to go back and try and keep her talking and try and get further details from her. They sent a plainclothed officer to my house, and whilst I was chatting to her he pulled up the chat logs and history on his laptop. By this time her speech was becoming more and more incoherent and the cam was knocked so it was impossible to see her. Soon the connection was lost. Was this real? Was it fake? I had no idea of knowing. The police officer was during this time on the phone with the station giving them what information he had been able to obtain. He then left, leaving me to contemplate. The next evening I got a call from the local police station, who wanted to thank me. The police had managed to trace her through her IP address and had been able to attend. It apparently was a genuine suicide attempt, and she had been taken to hospital and was subsequently undergoing treatment. I was 10-year-old riding my bicycle at dusk along the road I lived on, which was parallel to a set of railroad tracks. I moved off the road as a car sped by and a beer bottle came sailing at me from the front passenger seat. I could see two young women turned around laughing at me through the back window. I flipped them off and kept riding. About 30 seconds later, I heard the train slam into them. When my daughter was very young, 3, 4, we were on a family vacation in a state park lodge. Our room had exposed wood ceiling beams to match the decor. Important later, it was supposed to be nap time for my daughter, but she was quietly playing by herself and just chatting away, and the wife and I were eating on the other bed. Out of the blue my daughter turns to me and asks for a piece of rope. I asked why she needed the rope and she nonchalantly replies, "It is for my friend, the purple girl on the ceiling." My wife asks, "What friend?" And my daughter responds, "I have been talking with the little purple girl hanging from that wood up there," points to the ceiling beam. She asked me for another piece of rope. Needless to say that nap time was over and we quickly exited the room. I used to live in a house with 2 roommates. Let's call them Anna and Erica. I lived on the 2nd floor and Anna and Erica lived downstairs. Every night I would hear this thud coming from downstairs. I would investigate and it always came from Anna's room. I thought it was her doing burpees or working out at night, which seems dumb looking back. I never talked to Erica about it because I thought it was in my head, and since I was on the 2nd floor it never really bothered me. Fast forward 2 years and we all move into a new house with another roommate. Anna, Erica, and I live on the same floor upstairs. I start hearing the thud louder now. I go up to Anna's door and it sounds like she's hitting herself against a wall and whispering and crying or laughing. I also noticed when she left the room she had her sheets all scattered on the floor. I ask my other roommate Erica about it and she says she hears it too. Anna starts staying at her parents' house more often, but every time she comes home we hear the same thud noise. We started asking Anna about it and she makes up excuses like I was moving furniture or my porch door was swinging open. After we started questioning her more, she only came to our house maybe once a month to pick up some clothes. It was so strange. I never think we'll get an explanation. When I was 20 I visited a town in Italy that has a number of medieval towers that you can climb. My girlfriend did not want to climb any, so I went up one on my own and was the only person at the time doing so. It was a sunny day when I entered the tower. There was a flight of stairs that wound around the edge of the tower and no windows. Climbing the tower took at the very most 5 minutes. At the top of the stairs there was a ladder and a trapdoor that opened up onto the roof of the tower. When I opened it, I found the weather had changed dramatically and was overcast and threatening. I forget if there was thunder or not, but I was genuinely concerned about lightning. Being at the top of a tall tower in that weather, I cautiously climbed out onto the roof just to have a quick look before going straight down. The roof was surrounded with a sort of metal cage of bars that were clearly intended to prevent anyone falling/jumping off the tower. I heard some thunder and saw electricity arc between some of the bars, not a blinding lightning strike. Just arcing. I decided that the tower was imminently going to be struck and descended as quickly as I could. At the bottom I was surprised to find the weather was again sunny with a clear sky. My girlfriend could tell I was shaken and was amazed when I told her I thought that maybe there had been lightning. The weather had not changed whilst I'd been up the tower. I have started to tell the story a couple of times, but it's just too weird to expect anyone to believe. I have literally no explanation. I'm very much a skeptic when it comes to the paranormal. I'm not religious, and I have had no other weird experiences like this. In short, I'm not your stereotypical spooky things happen to me kind of person. And yet ... When I was about 11 or 12 I went with my friend and my younger brother to play football in a park that was in a pretty remote place, so there were never many people. Basically 3 or 4 people came dressed in like Victorian style clothes, set up a box underneath a tree with big branches, tied a rope around it. One of them stood there with this noose around his neck, and then his friend kicked the box, so he was hanging. They took turns doing this, and we left. Was super weird thinking back to it, and I have to check with my brother whenever I think about it to make sure it actually happened. Edit. For people asking how did they not die, they were taking turns etc. From what I remember, the box must not have been particularly high relative to the length of the rope, so there was not much of a drop if any. I do not remember how long they were swinging for, but I suppose it must have been between 15 seconds to a minute. Then the friends would put the box back for the one hanging to stand on, so they could get down, and someone else would take their place. I work as an adult novelty store manager with a theater, so please envision the kind of customers I get. I had this regular who was nice enough, and we always exchanged pleasantries and small talk. One day we said goodbye, and as he went to leave he stopped dead in his tracks and came back to the counter. He told me that he ignores it every time, but today it would not let him. So naturally I ask what the hell is he talking about. He proceeds to tell me that there is an older black man who is with me 24/7. He sees him every time I'm in the store. The older black man just stands next to me watching me and smiling. At that point a chill ran up my spine, because no one in that store knows besides my boss that I'm half black and my 65-year-old black father that I was so close to passed in 2014. I said the usual wow and oh my god, so I will not give anything away to see what else he says to see if it's legit. The customer proceeds to tell me that the man, my father, is sad about his kids not doing what has asked them to do, and one particular child I has greatly disappointed him. The man, my father, also wants the customer to tell me how much he loves his wife, even though she's married again. At this point I have tears in my eyes because how would this man know there's conflict between me and my siblings because of my dad's death? How would this man know my mother is married again? He kept mentioning that he could feel a strong religious pull with my father. My father was a preacher. He told me a bunch of other things and asked if I was pregnant. I told him no, but apparently my next child will have my father's soul according to him. My 2-year-old son looks like my father and loves his favorite songs. I have never seen that man again. When I was 5, me and my identical twin sister both caught scarlet fever. We are from America, but my dad's project had temporarily relocated us to India, and we were not used to the water and food there. We both fell into a coma towards the end of the fever. One day I woke up to my mom and aunt screaming and crying and holding my sister because she was unresponsive and not breathing. They were doing chest compressions, CPR, etc., but nothing was working. I was desperately trying to get their attention because I was young and did not understand what was going on. I went back in my room to go back to sleep, but in the corner of the room where my sister's bed was, I saw her laying there, breathing fine. I went back out to the living room and realized I was looking at myself in my mom's arms as she tried to revive me. Eventually, I saw my eyes flicker open, and then everything went dark. I woke up a few weeks later in the hospital next to my sister and mom, who ended up catching it because of us. My mom told me I had almost died and they were trying to wake me up, but I was unresponsive. So the ambulance took all 3 of us into the ICU. To this day, I'm still unsure how I witnessed my almost death. I might have an answer for you. I had something similar, to a much lesser extent. When I was a kid, I wrecked my bike at my grandparents' house by flying off their 7 feet tall retaining wall to the underground garage. The way I remember it, I had an out-of-body experience where I was watching myself from above, soaring through the air, and then popped back into my body right as I hit the ground. I was knocked out, had no sense of myself or anything, but I could hear everything going on around me. I could hear the neighborhood kids yelling to go get my grandparents and eventually them getting their own parents to come help me. Anyways, I come to and am completely okay thanks to my helmet. The helmet on the other hand was shredded to malarkey. Jump to a few years ago. I'm listening to NPR and there is a program called Radio Lab airing a story about out-of-body experiences that fighter pilots used to experience. I used to live in really rural Texas and was driving down a FM farm to market road during some very thick fog. I was in an old pickup truck and was going maybe 20-30 miles per hour because I could not see very far ahead. Super glad I was. As I came around a turn I saw through the fog this big hulking figure lurching across the road. I slowed down, pulled up near it to pass and saw what was the biggest hog I have ever seen in my life. A good 400 pounds certainly. It was dead. Probably destined to ride whatever car hit it. And dragging it to the side of the road, an absolutely massive white shaggy dog. Y'all, this dog. I was in a pickup truck. And this dog made eye contact with me, lifted its head, and stared me level in the eye for what felt like an eternity. I stopped my truck and stared. I was so caught off guard. After probably a few seconds, felt like forever, it put its head back down, grabbed a chunk of hog, and continued making its way off the road. To break it down, this dog was smart enough to move the animal it wanted to eat, large and strong enough to drag a 400-ish pound hog across pavement, and tall enough to look me in the eye in a pickup. I will never forget those eyes. It had mud-stained white fur, a big block head, and a long wolfy tail. It looked almost like a Pyrenees, common around there, but with a big street Bernard-shaped head and double the normal size. Big glowing yellow eyes. I have no idea if it was some freak mutant farm dog, a spirit, a wolf, or what, but I'd like to never see it again. I was working in a retail store in a pretty sketchy area. There was this lady who was obviously a heavy drug user or ex-drug user. She must have been in her 50s or 60s. She was notorious on my block for being a crazy, but she'd visit me all the time and told me she thought I was cute. It was really bizarre cause she looked like a crackhead, but she'd act like a teenage girl around me. I tried to be nice to her cause she was known for being volatile. Anyway, on Christmas Eve she packed an entire Christmas dinner which she told me was all home-cooked Guyanese food and a cologne set. As she was leaving she just squats down on the floor and throws her hand up and starts cackling. Yes, cackling which faded to a giggle. Never saw her again. Edit. Yes, I ate it, and I enjoyed it. Confirmed with some Guyanese redditors. Main dish was definitely pepper pot. Second edit. So a lot of you seem really surprised I ate the food. Some describing it as insanity. Some as a mark of true bravery. Let me be very clear. The point of the post was not even about me eating the food. It basically take free food from a stranger any given day of the week. From the moment she handed me the food, I knew I was going to eat it. Neither the prior knowledge of her being a druggie nor any action she would take after handing me the food was going to change this. When I was a kid I was playing in our kitchen when I saw a huge dark figure walk past the kitchen and down the hallway leading to the bedrooms. I walked to our back patio and saw the rest of my family watching TV. The patio is on the opposite side of the house from the hallway. I walked to the hallway and started looking for who it could have been, but never found anyone. Still have no idea who or what it could have been, but it's always creeped me out thinking about it. This happened to me too, but it was my 67 uncle looking for beer in the garage past our bedrooms. I used to live in the middle of nowhere. The town had less than 200 people in it. I used to work through the night in one of the metro areas, and it was about a 40-minute drive with about 15 of it on a county road. I used to think I would see malarkey in the fields, coyotes, deer, etc. all the time. Never thought twice. Well, one morning I was on my way home, about 3 AM, and we had a little bridge to cross right before we got to our road. As I'm closing in on crossing the bridge I can see something pearl white just hanging out in the middle of the road. Thought it was probably a swan and it would move. As I got closer I realized that swans are not that big. I was in a ref 150 and it was at eye level with me. When its wings opened up it literally covered both lanes of traffic. I swerved to miss it, but hit some of the wing. I slammed on my brakes and turned around. Whatever it was 100% gone without a trace. Never saw it again. If it was a bird, that's the ducking biggest bird I have ever seen. Oh, and I did not alive by anything considered to be a large body of water. Edit. The only thing I can describe it as a humongous crane. But the only area where cranes live close to that old house was about 5 hours away. So, I was definitely atheist pre this malarkey. Now IDK what to believe. Last fall I had a dream with my deceased grandmother. We were in a casino in Wendover playing blackjack, and she was basically just catching up. She looked young again, and was in a very lovely black dress and shawl. We drank and laughed and played, then she had to go. It was a really vivid lovely dream. Cut to about a week later at my sister's birthday party. She's talking to one of our cousins about a dream she had a week prior with our deceased grandmother. Detail for detail it was the same dream that I had not told anyone about. The difference? Me and grandma played blackjack. They were playing poker. I still to this day have no logical explanation, but it's the strangest feeling I remember having. Thanks for the responses everyone. Yes, coincidence is definitely the most logical explanation for this dream. Few things. I have never been to a casino with my grandmother. Also my sister and I are not very close. We grew up in different homes and see each other holidays/special occasions. With the timing and details they could just be coincidence, but it's all a bit too many coincidences for me to just dismiss. Personally anyway. It's been almost 10 years, and I still do not have anything that's somewhat close to an explanation what happened then. My bestie and me were sleeping over at her grandma's house and enjoying the newly renovated attic as it was supposed to become her little teenager apartment. All new furniture with a huge comfy couch and nice clean board screwed to the wall all in white pink. Sleepover went just like you would imagine it, with two 15-year-old girls painting nails, watching DVDs, and talking about the hottest gossip at school. It was already like 3 AM when we decided to go get some sleep and left the room to sleep in the bed next door. Only a few minutes later we heard a little scratching sound followed by a loud bang, clearly coming from the room we just left. One of the boards that were screwed to the wall was lying on the floor, almost 4 meters away from where it was supposed to be. Not like screw broke and it fell. Nope. Solid 4 meters away from that wall. Almost 2 centimeters deep hole in the ground where the board was laying. The holes in the wall looked like something grabbed that board and pulled it straight out, ripping the wood and concrete it was drilled to. Still getting goosebumps remembering it. I had something similar. My mother and I were in my room because she had to use the computer that I was on when we heard a bang come from the kitchen. I went to look, and the clock that's normally on the wall was on the floor, leaning against the leg of a chair, maybe 7 feet from the wall. I figured it must have just fallen off the screw. No, because directly beneath it is a coat rack, followed by a shoe rack. It would have fallen, bounced off the coat rack, and flopped either on or behind the shoe rack. That's not what it did. The path from where it hung to the chair was an arc that completely bypassed the coat rack. Not to mention that it had been several months since daylight savings time, so it was not touched any time recently. A few months later, I found the clock on the kitchen table with pieces of glass missing. I asked my parents about it, and they said that they came home to it on the floor, broken, but they cleaned it up. The second time may or may not be the same thing, but I cannot say for certain because I'm not the one who initially found it. Nonetheless, I could not figure a valid way that the thing could have not just fallen, but actually launched itself away from the wall. I was probably 18 years old and was driving at night to see a friend. This man kind of jumped in front of the car to make me stop. He honestly looked crazy. I slowed down the car to almost stop, and he moved to talk to me, I think through the window. But I just drove off once he got out of the way. I was so creeped out. I never told anyone because I felt guilty that I did not help him. Yeah, it's never good to stop for something like that at night. Best you can do is call the cops. It sucks if the person really needed help, but not worth putting yourself in danger, especially now that cell phones are a thing. I got recalled into work and was driving at about 3 AM. I was in a very rural area in western Washington. As I come around a curve I see a woman in a nightgown on the side of the road looking up at a steep embankment, just standing there staring away from the road. There are no homes nearby, not for miles. I call 911 and pull over about a minute up the road not knowing what to think. Deputy showed up, cold not locate anyone, and was as dumbfounded as I was. Happened to me before on a dark back road to my house. There is no street lights. The road is very curvy, and it was about 2 AM. She was standing on a bend in the road on the edge, while the cliff behind her was about 100-200 feet drop. There are no homes for about 2 miles up the hill. I was driving very slow to make the turn, so I got a good look with my headlights. I make it around the corner and look back. Nothing. Creepiest thing ever. White old lady in a white nightgown just staring. I was in my final year at uni, and I worked as a TAR for a language prof. This meant teaching 1-hour sessions multiple times a week. I basically lived in the known to be haunted humanities building. One Tuesday after my final class and before my first lesson of the evening, I was in the staff room heating up my malarkey tea microwave dinner. A woman I had never seen before came in. Obligatory oblem just scooch past ya ... and check the time on the coffee machine. Now I found it odd that this university employee came here just to check the time on the coffee machine. You do not have a phone, computer / watch clock. But who am I and my lean cuisine to judge? She looks at the time on the coffee machine and says, "That cannot be right. What time is it?" Me. It's 5:37. Her. HMM 5 minutes fast. Okay. With that she left, and although a bit odd, I did not dwell on the interaction. That is ... until 1 week later. Tuesday evening. I was again heating up my food when she enters. Obligatory oblem just scooch past ya and check the time. That cannot be right. What time is it? I look at my phone. It is exactly 5:37. I tell her, and once again she says 5 minutes fast. Okay, and leaves. I'm deeply unsettled. The microwave dings. I take my lean cuisine and quickly head upstairs. Never saw that woman again. Here is a creepy / weird story. During a road trip from NJ to NC, my friend and I decided we were hungry and went looking for food in a town in Maryland. I do not remember the name of the town, but it felt very strange as soon as we pulled onto the main road, as there did not seem to be any people out and about. It was the middle of the day, but no one was walking around. There were not any restaurant food options other than a pizza place, so we pulled up and parked in front of the pizza place. It seemed like everyone in the town must have gone to that pizza place. When we parked the car, everyone in the restaurant turned and looked at our car through the big glass windows. Like, at the same time, they stared at us. We stared at them. It felt so weird that I said, "I do not want to go in there." My friend just nodded at me wide-eyed, and we drove to another town for lunch. Why was seemingly the whole town in that pizza place? What was with the staring? I'm almost a little sorry we did not go in to find out, but at the same time not sorry at all. I just wanted to do a quick edit because I want to answer everyone's questions. As much as I would like to address them individually, I do not think I will be able. I wish I knew the name of the town. I think I never actually knew it. This story takes place 20 years ago. Google was not a thing. I think I had a beeper. I was new to driving. So using a paper map, my equally young and unexperienced in travel friend and I drove through the western part of Maryland to avoid major cities en route to Asheville, North Carolina. After reading everyone's comments, I agree we probably stumbled on a small town party or in very busy lunch hour. It just felt so scary to us at the time. I agree it seems Lovecraftian / Stephen King-esque. I also hope we were not going to be on the next day's menu. No, we were two 17-year-old white girls with dark brown hair. This was midday. I was driving. No headlights. I hope this answers everyone's questions. I'm going to go enjoy Friday night as best as I can, with some Moscow mules, and hope everyone is staying safe. Several years ago my friends and I were road tripping cross country, and we stopped at a campsite in southern Oregon. Something about this unassuming place made us all uneasy. It felt like everyone was staring at us as we drove in and set up our tents. We'd gotten that treatment in places where we'd stuck out, but here it seemed less like gawking and more like suspicion, malice. The sun set, our gear was set up, and we got in the car to smoke some legal weed before bed. We were talking and passing a pipe around, and my friend in the backseat had the door cracked with his knee against it. With no warning, something slammed into the car hard enough that backseat friend was pushed away from the door and the whole car rocked on its suspension. We immediately started the engine, turned on the brights and drove around our area looking. Nothing. We fell asleep in the car arguing over if anyone was willing to get our gear before we went to a motel. Something similar happened with me and my family, except in Washington. We were visiting some relatives and sitting with them at a softball game. However, the locals kept staring at us, as if they knew we were visitors. These locals all seemed to look similar too, but not sure if that means anything. It's as if they felt we did not belong there. In my mother's house, the basement light would turn on while we were away, and even if it was turned off before we left, it was somehow back on when we got back. Once I went downstairs and was like, "Hey Mr. Ghostman, this is not good for the bills, could you PLS chill it with the lights? Yes, I know it's dark down here, okay thanks." Light stayed off. Unfortunately that is all there is for this video, but do not worry, there are many more coming. Like and subscribe for more videos from the Reddit Rainforest. Thanks for watching.